The government is considering an independent inquiry into the deadly Mount Maunganui landslide. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon says families want answers, including whether there were opportunities to evacuate Mount Maunganui campground sooner. Questions are also being asked about what more New Zealand could do to adapt to the changing climate. Joining us now for our political panel, we have National's Simeon Brown in for Nicola Willis and Labour's Carmel Sepuloni. Kia ora, good morning to both of you.
Morena.
Good morning.
Simeon, I might start with you acknowledging that two of the victims of the landslide, Sharon Makaniko and Max Firskey, were both students at Pakaranga College, and your electorate among those killed.
Yeah, that's right, and it's incredibly sad. There's a lot of, obviously, the families are grieving, but also a lot of the community, in particular Pakaranga College, has been deeply impacted at a time when students are getting ready to go back to school this week, and so it's really hit quite hard. There was a vigil on Monday night, which I attended, with many of the students coming together to just show each other support and compassion and to spend that time together. So this has impacted not only, I guess, the Mount Maunganui community, but also communities across the country. Has had an impact, and of course that's why the Prime Minister's been out there meeting with the families, spending time with them, but also that's why we're now working towards an independent inquiry, because these families need answers as to what happened and what more could have been done.
Carmel, do you support that government inquiry idea, and what should it cover?
Yeah, we absolutely support it, and Chippy has said from the start that we would back the idea of a fulsome inquiry. Simeon's right, these families deserve answers, and we need to understand exactly what's happened here. Just reiterating, this is absolutely devastating for the particularly the families that have lost loved ones, but for all of New Zealand. I don't think anyone in the country could look at what was happening and not feel a deep sense of empathy and loss on behalf of the family. And so, yes, we support the fulsome inquiry and also just send our love to those families.
What should the inquiry cover? Does this need to go beyond Tauranga? Because what we know so far points to another system failure, right? We've got life or death information not getting through to people with the expertise to do something about it. People have lost their lives. Does that need to change, or something need to change at a national level?
Well, I think the inquiry is critically important because we need to know the facts. We need the facts, and we need to know what we can learn from this. And ultimately, the families, as I said, the families need answers, particularly at what happened in Mount Maunganui. In terms of the wider response, we have National Emergency Management, and we have our Minister, Mark Mitchell. He was on the ground right through last week and making sure that we were getting information out to communities. Many of those regions were putting in place those notices about the emergency come in early, which was good. But we also have to make sure we're continually learning from these events. We as a country, of course, face many natural disasters, and we need to make sure we're always learning from these to improve our response, but also our recovery. And that's where our focus is, not just how do we respond in the moment, but also how do we recover from these as quickly as possible for the people who've lost their homes, the roads that have been damaged, need repairing. That's our focus, which we're shifting to as well right now.
Carmel, what do you think about that in terms of, the system's failure? We can talk about all the things that we've done since Gabrielle, and improvements have been made, but yet this gaping hole still exists.
Interestingly, I woke up this morning and Facebook memories popped up, Ingrid, and 3 years ago we had the Auckland anniversary flooding. And so these are becoming, much more regular, these weather events. And so we are going to have to check in on our response and make sure that it's effective, because unfortunately with climate change we're going to see more of these occurring, more families across New Zealand that are affected. I think it's a question for the government how wide the inquiry is. I think we would all agree that primarily the consideration is for Mount Maunganui and what happened there, but we had weather events happening across the country, and I certainly got feedback, and I'm sure the government did, from parts of the country around whether or not there were alerts given early enough, whether or not they had enough notice that they were in danger, whether or not they could have. And so that will be a question that needs to be put to the government.
Simeon, Labor set up a $6 billion national resilience plan after Cyclone Gabrielle. Less than half of that money was spent, and your government wound it up.
Well, we're always spending money on resilience, and we've spent significant amounts of money on resilience.
Yeah,
and
but what about that specific,
fund?
What
What Labor put out was a press release. It was very good. There was exactly what they were very good at. Putting out a press release. There was no plan. There was no projects. It was just a press release put out by the government of the day saying we're going to spend X number of billion of dollars.
Yes.
But the reality is they didn't have a plan for that. We've actually got a
you
focused
could
plan.
have had the plan. You had the money there. It was set aside, and you wound it up.
That's exactly what we're doing. We've got the National Land Transport Fund, which we've put more money into. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars on resilience through the National Land Transport Fund to upgrade roads. We've got the
what about geotech?
Local roads,
Geotech
which is about
people to look
upgrading
after
culverts.
Geotech
and
people
things
to
like
look
that.
after our most deadly natural hazard, landslips, and getting those communication.
Yeah, the one
and we're
thing
spending,
I
and we're
think
spending, and the reality is there is investment.
Really disappointing.
Well,
it showed that this government doesn't recognise the reality for us moving forward, and that these weather events are going to become much more regular and much more severe, and that funding was put in place in recognition of the fact that we need to be looking at risk mitigation. We need to be trying to ensure that our infrastructure is sound and ready for when these weather events actually occur. So it was disappointing that fund was wound up.
I just want to, sorry, Simeon, we need to move on, but I just have one more question for Carmel here.
Well, no, I think I have the right to respond to her point. And
you've got 20 seconds.
And the point there is the first thing Chris Hipkins and the Labor Party have decided to do in response to this disaster is seek to politicise it.
That's not
when we're focused on recovering the lives, the bodies of those people who've been lost. We're seeking answers for the families, and we're focused on recovery for communities who have been devastated. And we have significant funds that we put into the National Land Transport Fund, into a whole range of other initiatives, which are specifically focused on improving resilience across our country, and they're seeking to politicise a very tragic set of circumstances.
The questions are being asked by all political parties around this and by voters as well. So, Carmel, Labor had a campaign rally in the hours after the slip. Was that good judgment, given what was going on?
Chris Hipkins has said if he had all of the information that he did not long after the rally set off, then he would have cancelled
the information
that rally.
he did have was that 5 regions were in states of emergency. A couple of hours before, police had confirmed that people were unaccounted for, and the Prime Minister was on the ground at the Mount before Chris Hipkins started
speaking. As he
speaking.
if he'd had more information, then he certainly would have called the rally off. He has expressed his absolute devastation alongside all New Zealanders. And, going back to what Simeon was saying about any politicisation of this, that's simply not the case. We've supported the government in the fact that they got out. When there were questions asked about where the Prime Minister was, Chippy was really clear. The Prime Minister was where he needed to be, and boots on the ground, it was absolutely the right thing to do. And so, but it is the right thing for us as the opposition to ask some questions, and certainly pointing to climate change and the government's commitments here are one thing we can ask, but our primary consideration has been on the loss of life and the way in which this has impacted New Zealanders, and we feel that deeply alongside the government.
Okay. We had our first political poll of 2026 released yesterday. Simeon, why isn't National more popular?
Well, we're very focused on the response to these weather events. We're very focused on our economic agenda and growing jobs and opportunities here in New Zealand. That is our focus. We're focused on delivery for New Zealand, fixing the basics and building the future. There's only really one poll that matters, and that will be on the 7th of November later this year. And in the meantime, our focus is really on delivering on the issues that matter to New Zealanders. So look, polls will go up and down and move around. Our focus is on delivering for New Zealanders and getting them the results they need. And at the moment, that is very much responding to these weather events, seeking answers for these families, and making sure that we provide the resources that are needed to support the recovery efforts that are currently underway across the North Island.
Carmel, good result for Labour. Those numbers, though, wouldn't get you far without New Zealand First, polling at its highest since 2017. Why do you think New Zealand First is so popular?
Oh, look, we can't focus on any other political party. We've just got to focus on what our offer is to New Zealanders and the work that we do over the coming months in the lead up to the election, and winning the support of as many New Zealanders as we possibly can so that we can lead following the next election and take over government. I will say, in terms of national, they have been on a steady decline since they got into government, and it's really clear they have not delivered on the things that matter to New Zealanders. And New Zealanders have told us time and time again that it's jobs, health, homes, and real action on the cost of living that they're looking for. And this government has not delivered on that at all.
Well, that's completely untrue. We've lowered inflation. We've lowered interest rates. We've lowered the crime rate. We've got our kids back to school. We're seeing waiting lists reduce in our hospitals, which had ballooned under Labour. Labour left this country in a mess. We are fixing it issue by issue and delivering the results that New Zealanders need. And we understand that times are tough for Kiwis, but we are seeing progress across a range of areas and actually fixing the issues that Labour ignored for too long.
Okay, let's see if we can go somewhere even more controversial. Rubbish. We've been talking about recycling this morning on the program. I'm not going to name names, but I'm talking about me. Confession time. Have you ever put your rubbish in the neighbour's bin, Carmel?
Not without permission. I think I certainly have done that, but from recollection, it's only when I've asked.
Okay.
Not a sneaky, just put it in.
Okay.
Put it in someone's rubbish bin.
Imagine. Simeon, what about you?
Oh, look, I can't, in all honesty, say I haven't. But
So you have.
I can't recall, but I can't say I haven't. We have a busy family and one of the bigger bins, and so we have 4 kids. We have one of the bigger bins up in Auckland, and we're regularly keeping that relatively full. But we also, I'm a keen gardener, and so lots of composting as well.
Excellent. Okay, great political answers and no judgment here at all. Thank you very much. That was Simeon Brown and for Nicola Willis today for our political panel in Labour's Carmel Sepuloni.